hiatus. We have had the shitstorm come down on us that is also known as life. But enough with those delays. I am George Tarrant, one of your hosts, alongside the man you all join us to just bathe in the glory of him, Lord and Savior Travis Croft. How are you, sir?
I am fine and dandy, and I bless our viewers this good. Is it Wednesday? It's a Wednesday evening. I'm unemployed, so I don't know what day of a week it is. My unemployment ends. It ends next Monday. I swear to God.
That's what they all say.
And I will be having to go back into the office 3 days a week, which is just inhumane these days for people like me. And George is just like, piss off, go to office.
Yes.
I hate going into the office. It sucks. But that's what we have to do. I also apologize for our delay. I had people visiting us from overseas who were supposed to arrive 2 Wednesdays ago. They did not arrive 2 Wednesdays ago because their airline, which rhymes with United, cancelled their flight 2 days in a row.
And from what you said, they cancelled the flight while they were already on the plane?
The second day, the first day, at least I had the courtesy to tell them they were cancelling their flight before they left home to go to the airport, which is a couple of hours away. So at least they stay home. Then the next day, they get to spend all day hanging around the airport waiting after getting there. I mean, get on the plane to be told there was no one to fly the plane and to get off, and the flight was cancelled.
I love that idea. No, pilot is just clocking off, done, dusted. Did no one look at the roster?
Well, yeah, like someone called in sick. I don't know how it works. Like, is that Seinfeld bit from the 90s going, does the plane have keys? Like, does the pilot ever forget the keys to the plane?
It's like, oh man, I left them in the public toilet.
Yeah. So yeah, they didn't arrive until the next day, but we didn't know that until it was too late. So if you're ever flying internationally to or from Australia, maybe avoid airlines that start with U and end in D.
Mm-hmm. And we are not sponsored by them.
And if they rhyme with blighted, maybe. But yes, I've fortunately never had the experience of having my flight cancelled after getting on the plane and waiting for an hour.
Yeah, that's quite a special one. Knowing most the notoriously bad terms and conditions of airlines is probably like, yeah, sorry, flight's not refundable and not transferable.
They did get put on the next day's flight, so they did get here eventually. So yeah, that worked out well. But it did kind of mess up our schedule a little bit. But we are back. We are here to talk about movies we watched 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yes,
and see how much we can remember about them.
Let's just call this what it is. This is a Cage Respective, and if you watch quality Nicolas Cage, you're never gonna forget it. So I think that we're going to be able to remember this pretty well. Let's get on to our chain movie of the week, where we followed on from last time's James Mangold directed, John Cusack, Ray Liotta starring Identity. We are following John C McGinley, and yes, for any eagle-eyed and eared listeners out there, yes, we have used John C McGinley once before in the chain, but it was right near the beginning, so I think we're okay, and most of the people probably wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't said anything. So on my own,
you'd be paying very close attention.
I do, damn it. Sort of, kind of. We are talking about Con Air, the 1997 action classic, I suppose. Now, was it you or me who picked this?
I did.
You did. Now,
I have an objection to start with, though.
Oh,
John C McGinley is not our link. John C McGinley's not in this film.
Wait, he's not?
He's not in this film.
He's not? Okay.
Who was you thinking of? John Cusack is our link.
Yeah. That's... Huh. Where did I get that?
John C. McGinley was the link from Was he the link from? He was in the radio film, the Oliver Stone.
Yes.
And that's how exciting the film was. That I can't remember what it was called. It was the Oliver Stone radio film we watched.
Talk radio.
Talk radio. He was the link from that, and I don't know if he was he the link into Identity. We should be paying closer attention. I can't remember.
He was the link into Identity. Yes.
Right.
Yes. But
to clarify, John Cusack here is our link. I had never seen this film before because it always looked dumb. And I don't, and seeing the film just did not dissuade me from that impression. It is dumb.
Yep.
I also thought it was a Michael Bay film for some reason. No, he said no involvement with this film whatsoever.
It's Michael Bay light director Sean West.
Simon West. Anyway, so he British-born Simon West. Mm-hmm. He did the Tomb Raider film, I think.
Yes, one of them at least.
If you are one of a few people in the world like me who had not seen it or does not know what it's about, newly paroled ex-con and former U.S. Ranger Cameron Poe finds himself trapped in a prisoner transport plane where the passengers seize control.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Bruckheimer film, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Which it feels very much. So maybe that's the link, really, because it's the Jerry Bruckheimer rather than the Michael Bay connection. This is a very entertaining film.
It's dumb, but it's fun.
And it kind of set us off in the house here because it was about 3 weeks ago we watched this.
Yeah.
We've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole of 90s action films as a result of this. We realized that Michelle had never seen The Rock. She had never seen Face Off, and she had never seen Demolition Man. So she doesn't understand the free seashells. So we have now covered those 3 films off as a result over the last few weeks. And I think it's kind of really reinforced to us something that Con Air kind of planted the seed for us. They don't make films like this anymore.
No, definitely not.
This is not a sequel. This is not a prequel. It's not part of a larger universe. It's not based on a pre-existing property.
Yep.
It's not linked to anything else. It's not a spin-off. There's no crossovers. It's just this.
Yep. That's all it is. And that is a long-lost treasure of Hollywood, frankly. And even when you look at the times in the last, let's say, 15 years that they have flirted with this sort of thing, they have gone on to become mega franchises such as John Wick. Or they have failed to do what they intended to do, like Shoot 'em Up, which was that dumb action, stupid but entertaining kind of thing, and that led to nowhere.
I guess what maybe the difference here is that these films and John Wick, to a lesser extent, or to an extent, they're played with a straight bat. Right? They take themselves quite seriously. A film like this of a Rock, I mean, it doesn't have jokes and laughs. They certainly do have jokes and laughs involved, but they're not winking and nodding at the audience going, you know this is stupid. We know this is stupid, but we're having fun, aren't we? Which I think a film like Shoot 'em Up, for example, was that Clive Owen?
Clive Owen, yeah, Monica Bellucci.
Terrible film. And they're not. If they're winking and nodding at you, and they're kind of like, we're all in the same joke. We know how stupid this film is.
Yeah,
I don't know. It just doesn't feel like you don't get to disappear into the film quite so easily. It's like I'm enjoying this ironically. You know, these films were not to be enjoyed ironically; they were to be enjoyed.
Yes,
this is a Big Mac of a movie. It knows it's not very good for you. It's not doing anything special, but it does it to perfection.
It's the kind of overindulgence, hedonistic style. Do you remember the advert for? I think it was. There was some speaker system, and it was that guy in a suit, and it was just slowly but surely kind of blowing him back, and the martini glass slid back.
Oh, yeah. TDK or something like that?
Yeah, and it was just that kind of idea of you are going to be hit with this wall of stuff, and you're going to enjoy it because of it. That's what these kinds of '90s action movies were kind of about. So like, all right, you know what? We've got an idea. Let's roll with it.
And the other thing is, I think the cast is having fun with it. You've
Yeah.
got some very well known stars in this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we talked about our link here to
Nick-
last week, John Cusack. We have, of course, the great Nicolas Cage,
Mhm.
John Malkovich, a very highly respected actor. I
Mhm.
don't know if he's won the Academy Award or not, but he's been in some very famous movies and known for being
No.
a very fine actor. Cole Meany, who known for, of course, Star Trek.
Yep.
Michael T. Williamson, Ving Rhames, a couple of years coming off Pulp Fiction.
Yep.
Danny Trejo, who
Yep.
probably wasn't, he's a big deal now. Very young Dave Chappelle.
Yep.
Steve Buscemi, who was a big deal in the 90s, again, made famous, I think, largely by Quentin Tarantino, known for his indie work.
Yep.
Even actors like Rachel Ticotin, who you will recognize from some Paul Verhoeven films.
Yep.
So there's some action people known for their action work, people known for TV work, and people who are very famous proper film stars, and they all look like they're having a really good time being in this film, and they know what they're doing is nothing special, but it all comes together beautifully in the end.
Yeah. And I think you were talking about that sort of like winking at the audience and knowing what kind of role it is and what kind of a story they're trying to tell, because of simple little things like the the slow getting off the bus image of Nicolas Cage, what's his name, Cameron Poe, as the fresh air is hitting his face, and just it's a look from like, it's the kind of look, and the acting is almost from like a washing machine commercial where your clothes are just so fresh you just can't help but take it in, and it's so it's the most stupidest over the top kind of moment in a bloody action movie about this is a prototype for Snakes on a Plane, kind of. It's like, okay.
Let's not understand how dumb this film is. Just to cover off for a second, the writer is Scott Rosenberg. We talked to the director of Summer West. Probably best known for the Tomb Raider films, I think.
Yes.
Other than Tonnerre, Scott Rosenberg did some really good things and some not so good things.
Yeah.
He wrote, apart from Con Air, he also did Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, which I think is, if I remember correctly, is pretty decent. He wrote the screenplay for High Fidelity, which is a great film. Gone in 60 Seconds. That's another one I never saw. He also wrote the screenplay for the recent Jumanji reboot, Welcome to the Jungle, which is actually, I think, a very good film. The Venom reboot, the Venom screen play, the first one, which was actually decent. He also did Kangaroo Jack screenplay, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're not dealing with, so he's done some good work, and I think that shows that he knows when he's onto a good thing, he can really nail it with this particular screenplay. And I think it's a good combination with the director, because you said some of those shots, like of him, the iconic haircut and the scenes of him in the plane, it's
back in the box.
It's not underrated how dumb this fucking film is. Like all the way through the film, I'm like, what the fuck would they be doing that for? Like the fact that they are transporting all of these guys onto one plane, which I don't know if that actually happens or not. It's a propeller plane in 1997, and they've got their very own shitty prison plane in 1990. Like, why are they using propeller planes in 1997? I'm pretty sure we had jets.
I think it would have been perfect, and I if they had just done a reverse airplane and just had a propeller plane but with jet engine sounds.
It's stuff like that all the way through. Like if you actually, and I kind of went in maybe with a slightly critical lens on it, in the sense that, like, you're trying to go, well, I haven't seen this before, and I'm not 18 years old the way I was, or 19 when this film came out, and I might give it a pass. I'm like, why is there a propeller plane? Why are they doing this? Why would they be doing that? Just dumb shit all the way through the film. But at every turn, you're like, why did they do that? The answer is so the movie can happen.
And that is exactly what this movie is, and why I think it's sort of like construction-wise works. Every single thing is escalation, and it's first up. It's a very simple but borderline realistic prison break in a plane. And then every single time it just ratchets it up a little bit more. So we get that moment where they're all just tied down, and we get an idea of some of the characters and the way that Cyrus the Virus Grissom is introduced. It's kind of like, oh, this is like blockbuster version of Hannibal Lecter style criminal celebrity sort of thing. And then you've got what's Steve Buscemi's character's name? Graham Greene, Garland Green. Sorry. You start to get a little bit, and it's all tantalizing little bits of, oh, what this guy's a badass. He's a psycho. This guy's all talk this way, and then the action starts happening, and then it's like, okay, yep, now we're gonna just pull the throttle back a little bit, and then we're gonna vroom again. So you're constantly just being fed this. As soon as the characters start to run out of interesting things, that's when action happens to suddenly shift gear and keep you interested and get the blood pumping, and then telling a bit of narrative through some of the action. And then they, as well as that, they're cutting to John Cusack's Agent Larkin and the banter that he has with Agent Mallory. It just knows the pace that it wants to go, and it's not like Fast and the Furious or something like that, where it's going, okay, and just go. It feathers it and just. So you're always just getting this moment where you feel like you're actually invested and interested in these characters, when in reality it's just taking a breath before the next action sequence.
It's almost like in the 90s they perfected the art of making a rom-com, at least they seem to. Not saying that they were the better term films, but there's an actual formula for how people write a rom-com, and that evolved, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s, into the golden age of a rom-com. Four Weddings and a Funeral, You've Got Mail, When Harry Met Sally. I think that Kate and Leopold, of course.
Of course. That is one detriment to Con Air. There is no plucky young advertising executive.
It is true. But I think action films maybe did the same thing. Again, watching this and The Rock, they're almost back to back, they're very similar films in the way they are put together, in the sense of you're right. We have a character moment, and then we have the action moment. Character moment, joke, action moment. It's you're never more than a few minutes away from the next action set piece.
Yeah.
And they were well staged. They're not shaky cam set pieces that became so popular, especially in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I think where John Wick might have started with that, my objection to where John Wick has landed is it's become so over the top.
Yeah.
That it almost entered self-parody now. And I know everyone else is completely able to suspend their disbelief of those films that I'm not. But
there's two bouncy cars in Paris.
Exactly, they turn car damage off or something in the control. It's almost become like a video game, those films. But when they started, they had that sense as well.
Yeah.
And I guess all of that energy now is sucked up into superhero films.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just feels these films have stakes, right? People die in these films.
Yeah.
This is basically Die Hard on a plane.
Yeah.
As was, and that's not the first Die Hard on a plane. It's been done before in Air Force One as well. It was Die Hard on a plane with the president. But Die Hard works. So on a plane, on a bus, in a building, it just works, and it's fun and entertaining. And there are stakes. People could die. I mean, you're pretty sure the good guy's not going to die, but Bubba from Forrest Gump could have died. You didn't know that was going to go like this. Remember, it's Mike Kelty Williamson, I think, that he'll always be Bubba to me. So, if you're part of a bigger thing,
Yeah.
that's part of where Marvel has gone wrong in particular of ladies. There's no stakes. Captain Marvel's not going to die in the Marvels, probably.
No.
The Guardians had that moment in Guardians 3. We thought, oh, they're going to kill a Star-Lord.
Yep.
Interesting. And then they didn't.
Nope. And then it's, are they going to kill Rocket? Nope.
No. So I know I'm sounding very old here. Oh, back in my day. But everybody I had this conversation with over the last couple of weeks about, we've gone down the Nicolas Cage rabbit hole, and that's led to the Sylvester Stallone rabbit hole, and like everyone misses 90s action films.
Yeah.
Like people want to see this kind of film,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And I wonder if there's someone out there who's going to putting two together and going, maybe, something like this, but not a Con Air 2.
The last great 90s action movie was The Nice Guys.
Ooh. Yes, that was good.
And
it's a good
because it was written by one of the
Shane Black,
masters of the 80s and 90s action movies.
Well, I mean, we watched an Nicolas Cage quest. We did watch The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which you and I talked about a while ago.
Yeah.
But that's probably more of an homage or a parody of 90s action films. But it still manages to pull off a lot of those beats. Pretty well.
Yeah. But because you so did you enjoy this? It sounds like you enjoyed it because it's spurred on this mini categorization of 90s movie watching. How does it rack with compared to those other ones?
I think this is actually a good one. This is solid. This is good. I had fun with it. It was just fun.
Yep.
I don't think it's as good as The Rock. I think The Rock's a better film.
I agree.
I think it's just a bit too dumb for its own good. It's just, you can't quite overlook all the dumb going on in this film, and a lot of the acting is kind of over the top. But that suits the film. It doesn't hurt too much. But I think everybody involved in The Rock, they were at the top of their game. Yeah, Bruckheimer and co. It was Don Simpson's last film with Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah,
Nicolas Cage had nailed his action persona.
Yeah,
Sean Connery did Sean Connery.
Yeah,
and you got little Easter eggs, little juicy pellets like Michael Biehn turning up for about 5 minutes as the SEAL commander, and you're like, oh, Michael Biehn, I forgot how awesome he was.
Yeah,
nice to see Hicks make a comeback. Stuff, and William C. McGinley and all that kind of Tony Todd's in there. Some really great character actors in there as well. It's just a fun movie, and I think when you read the trivia, it was script doctored by Quentin Tarantino and Aaron Sorkin, amongst other people. And it's kind of fun.
Pretty good writers.
Decent writers. It's interesting to sit there and watch it and go, that's Sorkin.
Yeah.
That's Tarantino, I reckon. You'll never really know. I mean, maybe nothing they wrote ended up in the final script, but you kind of feel like occasionally there's a line you're like, that feels like a Sorkin line.
Yeah.
So look, that's not to dismiss film. I feel strong. It was an oversight on my behalf to have missed it for this long. It was fun, and it really makes me miss. I know I'm again going to sound very old saying this, but when I was 15 or 16, a little younger when this film came out, every couple of weeks, every 2 or 3 weeks, there'd be something like this coming out in my local cinema. Not this good usually. Usually it was pretty fucking bad. Like I'm thinking the film Antonio and Armando Santo and did a film with Stallone called Assassins.
Oh, yes.
And that was trash. But we would be excited to see it all the same because Sharon Stone was in it and maybe she'd take her top off. It was just a fun time to be going to the movies, and I feel a little bad that you don't really get that experience quite so often anymore. I just kind of feel like you basically need to do your homework before you go to the movies most of the time now.
Well, that's it. I've just done a Google search for movies coming out in 2023, and we have got Wonka, a prequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So, okay, pre-existing property. Dune Part 2, I'm very much looking forward to it, but pre-existing property. Possibly the biggest non-franchise thing is Oppenheimer, but that's directed by Chris Nolan, so it's kind of he kind of is the franchise to that in a certain degree. There's another Hunger Games movie. There's The Marvels. There's Barbie, Blue Beetle, Kraven the Hunter, Gran Turismo, Equalizer 3, Disney's The Wish, which is a new movie. Rebel Moon, a Zack Snyder
Star Wars reject.
Star Wars reject at Netflix.
Is that coming out of cinemas? It's a Netflix movie, right?
It's Netflix, but it may come out in cinemas as well. They've toyed with that for a little bit. You've got Meg 2. You've got a new version of Disney's Haunted Mansion. You've got Insidious movie 6 or something. The sequel to Aquaman. Haunting in Venice, which I think is a remake of something. The name seems familiar. The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is...
Haunting in Venice, by the way, is a Agatha Christie book. It's part of the Agatha Christie thing that they're doing.
Good Poirot, yeah. You've got Expendables 4. There's Heart of Stone, which is the new Gal Gadot movie, but I don't know anything about it. And then you've got Challengers. Don't know what that's about. Strays, which looks like one of those anthropomorphic dog movies that you typically
I actually saw the trailer for that the other day, and I have to be honest, I don't know if the film's going to be any good, but it's a good trailer.
Okay. And then the other one on here is Next Goal Wins, which is the new Taika Waititi movie. So it's a huge portion of pre-existing properties right there. Huge.
It's pretty much all of it, really. I mean,
yeah,
it's going to be a rough year. And then I guess the only time this turns around is when people stop going to see these things, and maybe we're there. I mean, Dial of Destiny has apparently had a very average opening around the world. By reading 80 million,
not been successful.
And they need to make about $1 billion, about 900 million plus to make a profit on this thing, thereabouts, I think, because this thing cost 300 million to make. And now I haven't seen it, so I cannot say anything about the quality of it. I'm just saying it needs to make a lot of money to make its money back.
Yeah,
and it doesn't look like it's going to make it.
Nope.
And that's another failure for Lucasfilm.
Yep.
And it's another failure for a big money pre-existing property after The Flash, which I don't think is going to make its money back, because that cost every bit of 250 million or so to make.
Yep.
So with all that, that's two pretty big flops of very high profile material.
I think for Disney, I think they've kind of invested a little bit too much into the shared universe for Marvel to really be able to change that script too much. They may not have a choice because of Jonathan Majors' continuing problems there. But still, they may try and recapture some of that original. It may very well be. There was a rumor that I saw online that the Ironheart TV show may be a catalyst for bringing back Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, which just further ruins any stakes of mortality in the MCU. But, you know, he started the MCU. Maybe he can revive it. I don't know.
I think they need to stop.
Yeah.
I think they need to stop.
I think that they need to realize that it's not always about spending $250 million to make a movie, to make $1 billion. Instead, maybe spend $50 million and make 700 or 800 million and go, you know what? This was more financially viable.
So we could be there. We could be at the end of, or getting to a tipping point where the pre-existing shared universe thing starts to have increasingly diminishing returns. You're right. Disney have particularly invested so much into this. Like, they've got everything is in their IP basically, and they're losing money hand over fist at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's not there. What have they got? They got Star Wars, and Lucasfilm. That's basically all they've got, and they've got. It's Pixar, which have basically devalued over the last few years by releasing a shit straight to streaming. And we've talked about it in the past, the rumors of them stealing their best animators and bringing them across to the Disney animation side.
It's not surprising that the quality has dropped over at Pixar.
And I think Elemental hasn't done as well as they had hoped either.
No, it's getting a bit of a second wind at the moment, but that also ties in with school holidays. So that's not really surprising because there's also not much out there for young kids at the moment, and Pixar still has value in that name.
It's taken 187 worldwide, so I mean
that is low.
That's not great for a Pixar film. So add some of their more high-profile stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, if we go back 20 years,
right off of Con Air.
Can I just say one more thing? Just to reinforce my point on that one. 20 years ago, Finding Nemo made $941 million in 2003. So
bit of a change.
We have gone off topic, but you're
at the top of their game forever. No one.
True.
We're not debating that, but it is very telling when Disney fully buy out Pixar, bring them under the Disney banner, and suddenly the Disney properties start getting better and the Pixar ones start going down. It's like, yep, something's happening there.
Anyway, but that all spin off the idea that it is really, really nice to see something that was just standalone.
Yeah,
you can walk into the cinema, and if you saw it at cinema, or put it on streaming and just sit back and enjoy it. Leave your brain in neutral for an hour and a half, and just not have to worry about where this is going to fit into a larger story. And just to be on my usual hobby horse, it was an hour and 55 minutes, which is about maybe a little long, and maybe could have hacked 10, 15 minutes out of it for me.
Yeah,
but it's still so much better than the amount of 2.5 hour things that come out these days.
Yeah. Now, shall we go on to the next Nicolas Cage movie?
No. You have the keys. You've got to pick the next film.
Oh, that's right. I do have the keys, don't I? Yes, and I had back 3 or 4 weeks ago picked an amazing spin-off that I was going, and no, I'm not going to use Ving Rhames again.
Disappointing.
I could if you really wanted to, but I'm not going to be that. Have we actually used Nicolas Cage as a link? I don't think we have. Yeah, and I think that might have been where I was thinking of going, and going to a movie that I haven't watched, and it's going to be a tough one, but Bringing Out the Dead.
It's Martin Scorsese.
Yes, and I have not watched this movie.
I have, but a long time ago when it came out.
So that's from 1999, so 2 years after this one. Haunted by the patients he failed to save, a momentally burned out Manhattan ambulance paramedic fights to maintain his sanity over 3 increasingly turbulent nights. Now, this has got Nicolas Cage, Patricia Arquette, John Goodman, Ving Rhames, Tom Sizemore, Mark Anthony, Mary Beth Hurt, Cliff Curtis, Nesta Serrano as the top people on the list there. We've also got Martin Scorsese doing the dispatcher voice and directorial duties. But yeah, that's what I want to pick.
To be honest, to be clear, we cannot use Scorsese. I'm pretty sure we used him when we did Mean Streets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did.
So no Martin Scorsese link. So you can be safe. But we'll have to go a little bit more. I'll have to go a little bit more obscuro on this one. So
Out the Dead for next time.
Now we
can do it.
You talk about the Renfield. Now, just to be clear, I think I watched this film about 5 weeks ago. So I am going to do my very best here. But if it sounds like I've I'm a little sketchy on details just because things have happened.
That's
Renfield, Dracula's henchman and inmate at the lunatic asylum for decades, longs for a life away from the Count, his various demands, and all the bloodshed that comes with them.
Mm-hmm. This is
Nicholas Hoult stars alongside Nicolas Cage
yes,
and Aquafina
yes, and Ben Schwartz.
as the bad guy. I think that's the most of the better known actors in here. I don't think there's any else popped up. Directed by
Bella Francesca Lobo's character. I'm going to butcher this name. Shorer Agdashlu. She is sort of like one of those people, especially her voice. She has got that deep, kind of. Maybe it's like Middle Eastern Egyptian kind of accent to it. It's very smoky kind of voice. You hear it.
Oh,
you
yes.
recognize that voice. Yeah.
She was in Law and Order for a bit. She's in Star Trek, I think.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, she pops up around. Oh, she was the voice of Gozer in the last Ghostbusters film.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Nicely done. And they're directed here by Chris McKay, who has directed other films, including the Lego Batman movie, and unfortunately for him, The Tomorrow War, because that film sucked. It is written by Ryan Ridley and Robert Kirkman. So, for those of you who don't know who Robert Kirkman is, go back to school, please. He is, of course, the man behind The Walking Dead, amongst many other things. But Ryan Ridley, you might know, is a writer for Rick and Morty. And Invincible, only the one, but he also worked on Community. So he has
hearing that, because that's a lot of kind of legacy comic and comedy talent right there. But this one, it kind of plays it a little bit more of a straight bat. It's not the out and out kind of jokes, but incidental humor, I think.
Yes, it's not a straight comedy, but I mean, you can kind of get the meta nature of it from you can sort of feel the Rick and Morty influence.
Yeah, that especially the relationship between Renfield and Dracula. That kind of it. There's more than just a shade of Rick and Morty in that kind of dynamic, for sure.
So, Prox, why did you tell people? we read the description. What did you think of it?
I very much enjoyed it. I think this is one of those things where you kind of think, oh, really? They're doing a movie about the side character from Dracula, which is one of, if not the most represented fictional character in cinema. So many people have played Dracula or a vampire of some description. But bringing it into the modern day, and Nicholas Hoult is very good at being this kind of character. He's done it before, like what was that zombie movie that he did?
Oh, was it Warm Bodies?
Warm Bodies, yes, thank you. And it's sort of like doing a little bit to get a lot, and this kind of brings in a little bit of that superhero sensibility that we now have in everything, with him sort of like just eating a spider and suddenly becoming super powerful and things like that, which is kind of cool. The action sequences are kind of cool. But the person that really gets what movie they're in most is Nicolas Cage. And this is apparently it's one of his top 3 roles that he has always wanted to play. He's always wanted to play Superman. He can now tick that off, kind of.
And Captain Nemo.
Yes.
I would be very interested in seeing a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea film with him as Captain Nemo.
I don't know.
Or
would it be socially
a reboot of the Extraordinary Gentleman, A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, with him as Captain Nemo in that?
Could you do it though?
Look, I don't know who owns the rights now, I don't, assuming I haven't reverted to Alan Moore because he won't let anybody touch it. I imagine after the last time, um, and I don't know what the appetite would be in Hollywood to reboot a deeply unsuccessful comic book movie from 23 odd years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we know, they only like to reboot trash, not things that have actual potential ideas. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we talked at length about other films we've seen. Go, this would be good, but no one's ever heard of this. And
Yeah.
I think the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen could make a sensational film. But
Yes.
no, I don't like our chances. But I'd be excited to see him in any capacity as Captain Nemo.
Yeah. But this is overall, this is kind of going back to our conversations about 90s action movies. This is kind of like almost like a blend of the sort of like buddy cop action movie of the 90s with a little bit of the kind of fish out of water element of something like A Fish Called Wanda. It's a bit of a hodgepodge medley, but it's charming, it's endearing, it's got a lot of faults and flaws, and it doesn't look spectacular. The production value is okay and generally gets everything that you need it to look, but it looks like oh, this does look like that redheaded stepchild that we banished upstairs and feed fish to once a month. But it's still like the makeup effects on Nicolas Cage as he's kind of coming back to kind of full flesh version of Dracula is pretty good. So like the action sequences where Renfield kind of rips someone's arms off and stabs arms through bodies and things like that. It looks dumb but fun. It's fine, but it's kind of like B-movie schlock.
It was not quite there for me. I think it's okay. It's probably a 6, 7 out of 10 for me kind of film, in the sense that you're right. They're deeply the super ultra violent nature of a film. I'm like, yes, that's what I want from a Dracula film. I don't want glowing or glittering vampires like in freaking Twilight. I want sparkly vampires. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, I want the geysers of blood when things get ripped off. I want the Tarantino-esque effects. I want it to look, people get torn to shreds. I like that in a fight with Dracula. That makes him feel like an actual threat. Same when Nicholas Hoult fights people. And so many films just puss out at the violence these days. Like, it's weird. If you go back to our conversation in the 90s, remember, everyone would, violent films, they're going to make people serial killers. And, we've kind of gone the other end now where, like, all those films that we talked about, the Marvel films, for example, they just do not actually, not only do they not have stakes, the violence doesn't have stakes. Like, you don't actually... No. The closest you saw was Thanos getting his head knocked off in Infinity War, Endgame. And it was kind of, just didn't feel like a
retcon.
Like I want those guys of Kill Bill guys of blood to kind of happen, and they got that really good here. As you said, Nicolas Cage is exactly what he's doing. He's perfect in the role. In fact, I wanted more of him, less Nicholas Hoult. Not that Nicholas Hoult was bad. It's just like, I want more Dracula. He disappears from the film for 10, 20 minutes at a time. And I'm less interested in the relationship between Awkwafina and Renfield than you might think. Awkwafina seems a little out of place, frankly. I mean, I liked her a lot in Shang-Chi, but not so much in this.
I respect the fact that they didn't really play on the romance side for Renfield and Awkwafina's character. What's her name? Rebecca. I think that's nice. The fact that just because there's male and female characters that they have to have a romantic engagement. I like the fact that we are getting it more of a common thing of them just being friends or associates and things like that. But it also didn't gel in the way that they were hoping, I think.
Some of the underlying plot just didn't work for me. The idea that the entirety of a major US city's police department could be bought off by a criminal family in such an obvious and, overt way is just belies belief to me. And I know maybe I'm looking at this too seriously. It's a dumb action horror film. But it's stuff like that pulls me out of it. Like, okay, so everyone in the New Orleans PD is on the payroll of the Lobos.
Yeah.
The Lobo family being even the local mafia gangster family bigwigs, the bad guys in the film. Like, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense.
And this is the movie with Dracula.
I mean, it's an interesting angle to have a mob crossover with, but it's an interesting idea.
The fact that Dracula and the way that he interacts with the world is more believable than the board off entire cops. It just shows just where the problem kind of lies. The problem lies on the more real side of the spectrum of this movie, the fantastical side. Renfield and Dracula works. And when they engage more with the real side and the modern side, that's when it really stumbles.
That's because it feels like that was half written to me. I don't know if that was. I don't know what the script development process was. It kind of feels like I've got this cool idea about Renfield and Dracula in the modern day, doing cool shit, and you got to base it somewhere. You got to build that you got to build that house on a foundation, and the foundation was New Orleans. It'll be like gangsters. It'll be police and stuff, and we'll have a cool police detective who gangs that. Yeah, like that kind of felt like that. Almost felt like an afterthought, and it didn't get the love or attention it deserved.
This is where I think it should have done something maybe a little bit more like what the original Crow did, and just have this nebulous, nameless city with enough personality presented to it in a very claustrophobic movie. There's only a few locations that we go to, but they're always dark and dingy and dangerous. And you believe that world. It didn't matter where it was. If they had just made this New Orleans-inspired city with Dracula and Renfield in it, I think that might have just helped if they had just gone, you know what, we're not trying to set this in the real world. We're not going to put it in New Orleans. We're not going to put it in New York where people can recognize. This is just a flavored city, like Gotham City in the animated Batman, where it's like 60s inspired style, but they've got mobile phones and things like that, where they're just blurring things up just to make it compelling and complete the picture.
Yeah, that's the kind of maybe that would have worked, and maybe I would have had less of a problem trying to believe. But so just this kind of belied the idea that said the idea, but a possibility that they were going to take over an entire police force because that's what the story needed to happen. I mean, I don't know. It's
and it was also kind of a bit mixed message of wait, did this complete police takeover just happen, or was this always there? I don't know which one's more believable. I don't know.
So that made it a little hard for me. And yeah, so I didn't quite nail it, but it was it's good to see Nicolas Cage back in form and doing stuff that is really in his wheelhouse, I think.
Yeah, and just looking at the last few movies that he's been in, particularly as not just a cameo in them, you've got Renfield, and then The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Pig, Prisoners of the Ghostland. He's actually finally kind of engaging with material that he genuinely believes in rather than what can pay off my debt. And the results are paying dividends to him. People are remembering, oh shit, yeah, he was really good. That's right.
He had some moments back then in time. He wasn't just an action film. He's an Academy Award winner as well. So people very easily forget that. So in our Cage Fest, Michelle and I are next going to go to Moonstruck. And then we're going to go to, of course, he's also going to Leaving Las Vegas, which I've actually never seen, believe it or not.
Okay.
But I think it sounds kind of a thumbs up and a half from both of us.
Yeah, I would say so. It's entertaining, has its flaws, but overall, I think it gets its like intent across the line, largely carried by Nicolas Cage. And on the Nicholas Hoult story, he seems to be one of the front runners for playing the new Lex Luthor in Superman Legacy for James Gunn. I like Nicolas Cage as Nicholas Hoult as a actor. I think that he has got potential. He's a handsome guy. He's got the kind of form that if he needed to bulk up for a role, it wouldn't look odd to him. But I don't think Lex Luthor is the right role. I think it's only a matter of time before he is offered a superhero or supervillain role. I would personally be more interested in him being a villain rather than being tied to a franchise, because he puts in these unusual performances like his character in Mad Max and things like that, Fury Road. He knows how to just kind of push into it. And yes, I am aware that he was in Matrix, X-Men First Class and things like that, but he kind of got knocked to the sideline a little bit for the rest of those ones. And X-Men is currently dead, so never mind.
Well, maybe I think they're going to be pretty desperate soon, Marvel. So
that's why they're bringing back Hugh Jackman
sooner rather than later. Well, I mean, yeah, you can't. I question the value of something like that. I don't know. It's he's kind of played out, right? We were all very happy with Logan, weren't we?
Yes, and whilst James Mangold is not a perfect director, I genuinely understand and appreciate him asking the question, why? I did a good job of sunsetting him in Logan. Why?
Because money.
Yes, because money.
Now, speaking of because money, should we move on to the third film tonight? And the film that came out
2013.
2013.
Before
I'm thinking Another Earth, and it's of course the Smith Show, Jalen and Will.
Yes, it is.
Did you get around to watching this?
I did, unfortunately, and my opinion of it has not really changed. So, for those who do not know, a crash landing leaves Kitai Rage and his father Cypher stranded on Earth, a millennium after events forced humanity's escape. With Cypher injured, Kitai must embark on a perilous journey to signal for help.
Wow. And of course it is directed by M. Night Shyamalan.
And written by Gary Whitta.
Gary Whitta, who's done some good things in the past. I think he wrote Rogue One, which everybody says is the good Star Wars film that Disney made.
Yes.
I don't necessarily agree.
With Eli.
I did not like that. He's writing a sequel to The Last Starfighter. Remember The Last Starfighter?
Yeah, that has been a passion project of his for years. And apparently he's working with a director on getting it created, but who knows what'll happen there.
So I had never seen this. And for probably the first 20 minutes or so, I was like, it's a little bit like when we watched Morbius. Michelle and I watched the first 20 minutes, and before he said it's Morbin time. We're like, this isn't too bad actually. Why was all this the horrible press for this film? This isn't terrible. This is actually, I'm getting digging this. And then you're like, oh. And then after another 20 minutes, you're like, okay, well now that makes sense. And then you're like, the next hour and a half or so is just absolute trash. Same here. The first 20 minutes, like, okay, there's some potential here, some interesting world building going at the start of a film, some interesting ideas. The effects look good, and then they crash land on Earth,
and so does the movie.
And then you're like, okay, that's it. That's all we had. And then stuff just happens for the next hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and you're like, what were you thinking making this? Like, again, the whole thing looks good. That's the one good thing I can say about this. It looks good.
It looks all right. Yeah.
I think it looks good. The effects are good. I think the locations are nice. It's shot well. The cinematography is good. The first 20 minutes, as I said earlier, interesting world building, a nice creation of a world. And then it's just downhill from there. It's fucking terrible. What the hell is this?
It was originally an idea that Will Smith came to. It was supposed to be basically the idea of father and son having a car crash in the wilderness in Canada or something like that, and them surviving. And the same story of father being injured and child going off and kind of saving. But then he just kept on working it, and he called up Gary Whitta apparently and like asked him to help, and then it became this. And there's, even after the initial world building elements, which are messy when you go back and you kind of re-listen to him. So like, okay, so wait. So the Earth became uninhabitable, so everyone left Earth. And they landed, and then there was they landed on a planet with these aliens that hunt via the pheromone of fear that's exuded, or that aliens dropped them on, like we're generally led to believe is what would happen with xenomorphs and just planet destroyers and things like that. It gets messy. And so like, okay, you know what? I'm overthinking it. So there's aliens that are there that can see people because of the pheromones and the smells. And Will Smith is, he's devoid of emotion, so he's invisible. He's a ghost walker. And so like, okay, that's kind of a cool concept. Why is everything draped in white sheets? That's everywhere. The outside of buildings, the inside of the ships, everywhere. It's all just white sheets. It's like, okay, why? What? It's distracting. Okay, cool. They've crashed. All right, let's get on with this. All right, so concept of crash landing on 1,000-year post-evolved Earth is interesting, but then it's like, okay, why do we need the oxygen? Because there's still plants, so there's oxygen.
I think the idea there was that the air is too oxygen rich for people who evolved living on a planet with thinner air.
But also, it puts that drive of danger on Kitai as he's going, and of course he's going to lose more than he can genuinely survive on. But then it doesn't, apparently it doesn't seem to be too much of a problem by the very end of the movie. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think Jaden's much of an actor. I think Will actually, despite his, it'd be easy to see what happens to Will's career over the next few years after what he did at the Oscars. I suggest he's going to be persona non grata for a little while.
Yeah.
But needless to know, we've all known for a long time that Will Smith can act.
Yeah.
Jaden, I'm not sure. I don't think I ever saw anything else he's ever done. I think other than The Pursuit of Happiness, and I don't really remember him in that. I don't know that he was in it a lot. He certainly can't carry a film.
Yeah, I did watch him in The Karate Kid, and it was fine, but it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be an interesting person to watch. He certainly wasn't compelling in The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Nobody was, in fairness.
True.
I mean, the less said about that, the better. And similar to this film, the less said about this piece of shit, the better. I mean, the Adam Driver film that came out this year, 65, kind of reminded me. It looked a little bit like this, and you kind of got to wonder if it's reminding me of a film like After Earth, whether you should be making it, should you be doing it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and there's. So like some people have kind of said, some of the societal things of the new Earth, or whatever they call it, seem a little bit indicative of Scientology. But I think people might be trying to read a little bit too much of Will Smith's Scientology into this.
I didn't even know he was a Scientologist.
Apparently he is, yeah.
I did some research. They claim they're not, but Leah Remini says they are.
Interesting, but this isn't on the same level as Battlefield Earth for sure, but it's still just kind of, what is M. Night Shyamalan doing making this film? this is not the sort of thing that he is good at. It's and even to himself, it's like, yeah, the allure of making a big blockbuster movie is amazing, and people were, up until this real death knot for Shyamalan, offering him superhero movies and things like that, and he was saying no. The idea of father and son being about loss and survival, yeah, there is a certain level of compelling nature to that, but when you take emotion out of a character, what are we supposed to engage with? And so Will Smith is supposed to be this stoic, emotionless person, but we don't see enough of him actually genuinely worrying about his son. And Jaden Kitai is not strong enough and compelling enough to make this. Is he supposed to be a rebellious child? He doesn't seem to be. He just wants the attention and the confirmation of his father. It's like, okay, well, it just doesn't work, and it's not compelling to watch because Jaden is not good enough actor to do it. Simple.
And the story doesn't have enough meat on the bone. It's just not enough of interest. The only other film it reminded me of, for some reason, was Chaos Walking.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it's just bad all around thinking of these films together. If it's again, another terrible film.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for having to do that to you, but the rules are the rules in the sense we spin the wheel and the wheel picks what it
The
picks.
wheel is to blame.
And I think it's time.
It is time to spin that dial. Let's just get that up there. There we go.
Like very high tech.
Are we going 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 years into the future? Oh, it's the past. 2003.
2003. I'm just going to check my list here.
Nervous about movies came out in 2003.
So many good films. 2003. We are going back to
Don't say
Terminator 3.
Terminator 3.
I think it's Rise of the Machines. Is that what it is?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. Well, there was some. Believe it or not, it could have been worse. The films to pick from this week, just FYI, I should probably tell people first next time. From 1973, roughly this time into 1973, we could have seen Live and Let Die. For 1983, we could have seen Twilight Zone, the movie, which would have been interesting. I like that film. From 1993, this is where it gets really bad. It's Son-in-Law. So we could have gone to the Connect Shaw, Paulie Shaw. Terminator 3, obviously, from 2003. And from 2013, we had roughly about this time of year, The Lone Ranger. Not a strong bunch.
Not a strong week / month for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Oof. Okay.
Terminator 3 was a bad film until you saw what came after it.
Fair. And, it had some interesting talents on there. The main three characters obviously got Arnold Schwarzenegger in there, Nick Stahl, and Claire Danes.
But it's nah. Like, I mean, I like some of these actors. Like Claire Danes, I think, is actually a very interesting actor in the right roles. We talked late last year or start of this year about Feynman is in Trouble.
Yeah.
And she was good in that. And she's really good in some of Homeland. But Fleischman's in Trouble. Sorry, I got the name wrong. She's no, I wouldn't have thought of her for an action film like this. And Nick Stahl, I mean, he was the best they could get. I mean, this film had probably a virtually unlimited budget.
Yeah.
And you're like, where did he come from? I don't think I've ever seen him in anything before or since.
Well, he Carnival for HBO for 2 seasons, and he played the Yellow Bastard in Sin City, which was his big movie. And then apparently he disappeared for like years, legitimately just vanished.
That's a good sign. And Jonathan Mostow as again, Jonathan Mostow as your director. Obviously, James Cameron didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Yeah.
Like what the fuck,
Yeah.
right? Like, you can criticize Disney's work on Star Wars, and I do.
Yep.
But yeah, they did go out and they got J.J. Abrams, who's one of the biggest, best directors. Rebooted Star Trek, and known for making high budget action films, and Ryan Johnson, indie film darling, and they
Mm-hmm.
didn't fuck around with
No.
talent in those films. But
No.
I don't wait. Anyway, you will talk some more about Terminator 3 in a couple of
Yeah.
weeks. So
More
that's
there.
it's something to look forward to. It is streaming in Australia, by the way, on Binge or Stan.
Binge and Stan. All right.
I don't know about you overseas friends.
Binge. Should we go to the section that everyone loves dearly because of the jingle? Binge Browse
Burn. Sure thing. And obviously, it's been a few weeks since we've talked,
Yeah.
but we can maybe up it to 3 if you've got 3. But I've got a burn to start with,
Okay.
and that is The Idol. This is in Australia. It's an HBO, sorry, a Max show. It should be called HBO Max, what it used to be called.
Yeah.
It's airing in Australia on Binge.
Is this the
It
one with
stars
Lily Depp?
Lily Depp Rose and The Weeknd, who is
Yeah.
a rapper or something.
Yeah.
And he wrote it as well as starring in it.
Okay.
Jocelyn is desperate to reclaim her rightful title as the greatest and sexiest pop diva in America after a nervous breakdown disrupted her most recent tour after Tedros, a notorious nightclub entrepreneur, reignites her passions. The Weeknd plays Tedros. Lily Depp Rose plays Jocelyn. There's some talent on display here. Hank Azaria is involved. Eli Roth pops up at one point in time. There's a lot of familiar faces in here.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, I watched the first episode, so I'll give that as the caveat. I could not get any further than this. This is dross of the absolute highest order. Disgusting. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible show. The Weeknd.
Feel bad.
You should feel bad about. Is like I don't know any of The Weeknd's music. Apparently, he's very popular.
Mm-hmm.
And he apparently is the co-creator or writer of the show. And there's one of the trivia notes here. April 25 last year, Variety reported the show would be reworked. It would undergo significant reshoots with changes to its cast and crew due to a change in creative directions. Reports at the time claimed that co-creator and actor The Weeknd, Abel The Weeknd Tesfaye, felt the series is leaning too much into a female perspective, although he has denied such claims.
Okay.
Their director, who was a woman at that point in time, left the series amid the creative overhaul, and Sam Levinson took over, who I don't really know who he is. I think he created Euphoria, which apparently is very popular with the young people,
Yes.
I've never seen it, but I have heard of it. Amy Seimetz, probably best known for the Girlfriend Experience TV show. Otherwise, she also directed some of Sweet Tooth, which is a show you've talked about.
Oh yeah.
This is terrible. He's a terrible actor. Lily Depp Rose, I think is going to be a star.
Mm-hmm.
She's got some. She looks great. The camera likes her. She's a beautiful young woman. Obviously, good genetics. The only thing I've seen her in before this was Yoga Hoses.
Yeah.
Is difficult to judge anybody's acting ability off.
Good order here, you holder.
This is not good. This is really, really terrible. And I think it's going to be the one and done season. I think it got cut short even because it was so terrible. But like it's exploitative.
Mm-hmm.
It's gross. It's creepy. And no, just I would. This is one of the worst things I've seen all year.
Wow. Okay. A good burn to start with. I am going to go with a soft burn, light browse for a Netflix animated show, because that's what I do. Dragon Age Absolution.
Is this manga?
No, it's based on the EA games
Right. Yes.
Dragon Age Absolution, and all the whole franchise of them. Which, if you've ever played them, they are very deep, kind of Skyrim-like third-person perspective action adventure games. Very deep lore, a lot of world building in them, and they are ripe for, in similar kind of sense to Dungeons and Dragons, where there is a lot of pre-existing lore to go from. I don't really know too much about Dragon Age stories of them or anything like that, so I'm going just off of this show, and I have watched all 6 episodes that are out so far. The animation is very average. It is very, very kind of lowest common denominator. Tick the boxes where we need to. Quite typical Americanization of more traditional Japanese anime style, with that very simple kind of aesthetic to the color palette and things like that. There's a lot of, oh, I recognize that voice in it. You've got Phil Lamar, who he's done so many voices, it's ridiculous. You've got Ashley Birch, Sumali Montano. Who else have we got in here? Matthew Mercer is one of the main voices for a short time in it. So they've kind of called in all of the staples to make a fantasy animated TV show, but clearly there's no heart or love in it, especially when you compare it to some of the other animated stuff that Netflix have done, where they did a really good job with Castlevania. They got good quality actors in there to do the voicing. They made a very compelling example of westernized anime style animation. It looked really good. They kept the story nice and succinct. It worked well. Even their reinventions of like She-Ra and things like that, the animation was different, and they were using it to inform on the story, and they did well. This is very paint by the numbers, very average. It is not bad, but the story is not particularly compelling. The characters are not particularly interesting. The animation is not awe-inspiring to make you watch. It's just something that you can put on in the background and do something else with. So
that's not a great endorsement.
Disappointing, considering the depth that they could have gone to. They could have done this as like a 15, so like 12 to 15-year-old kind of age bracket, where they could have pushed the barrier a little bit more, a little bit more on the violence, or a little bit more on the just the more mature kind of storytelling. They just didn't. And
do you think if you're a fan of the source material, you might have enjoyed it more?
No, I don't think so. I think it would have been much like when you watched The Legend of Vox Machina for a little bit. There was obvious kind of inside references that are made, but beyond that, it's like, I don't know, don't care. And the story that you are presenting to me every episode is not particularly interesting.
That's not good.
No, it's not.
You're not selling it, but that is kind of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
I've
got another one.
Okay.
Yeah. This one is a browse. It's definitely in the browse category, and this is the Lonely Islands movie from 2016, Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. And they came out with a run of kind of almost...
This is a film though, right? Not a TV show, yes?
It's a film, and they came out with a bunch of kind of parody movies, documentary style, which evoke a little bit of sort of like Christopher Guest and the guys that did A Mighty Wind and This Is Spinal Tap and that sort of stuff, with a little bit of almost airplane absurdity. And this particular one is about when it becomes clear that his solo album is a failure, a former boy band member does everything in his power to maintain his celebrity status. And it uses a lot of that documentary style filmmaking to keep you going through the story, but it's just absurd. The endearing nature of Andy Samberg, if you like his comedy, you will like this, as well as the rest of the team. There's music in there that is perfectly ripping the shit out of the Hollywood pop scene. For example, there's a song that he decides to write about gay rights, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's a really good message, but we have gay rights, yeah, it is okay to be gay, and it's just absurd. But the jokes, the problem with them is the jokes kind of go a little bit too long. But if you like their stuff, then you'll like it. I probably about a year ago talked about, they did a parody of the Tour de France, and it's like the most drug-addled sport in the world, and it had some great little cameos from, I think John Cena was in there briefly, and it's absurd, it's brilliant. This is not as funny as that. It is not as successful as that. But if you like this style of comedy, if you like parody and you like the Lonely Island guys, you're gonna like this. So I definitely put it in the browse. It knows what audience it's shooting for, and that's it. It hits that audience.
I have seen this film, and it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. The question I have is timing. Like 2016 wasn't exactly the golden age of a boy band anymore.
Yeah.
I know One Direction were probably still kicking around at one point in time there, but like I feel like the early 2000s, you know, Backstreet Boys, that kind of thing, Five, NSYNC was kind of the moment for this. So it felt a little bit out of like a parody out of time.
Yeah.
You know, but it's solid.
Yeah, that's the good way of doing it. Tour de Pharmacy, sorry, is the name of the parody that I was trying to remember. But yeah, it's not bad in any way, shape, or form. But if you don't like any of Andy Samberg's
if you don't get the Lonely Island guys comedy,
you're not gonna get it.
If you didn't like, you know, their music and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not a massive fan, but I think I'm not a massive Andy Samberg fan, but I thought this was okay.
Yeah.
And if you're like old enough to like me to have remembered living through the boy band age,
yep,
that'll help.
We survived it.
I have another burn for you.
Yeah.
It's Burn City. This is probably a softer burn than The Idol. This one is, and this is going to be slightly controversial. That is a Secret Invasion. So I have watched
the Disney show,
the new Disney show, the Skrulls, Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury series. This Nick Fury series been waiting around for a while, I think. And this is not good. It's got a 7 on IMDb, and I am at a bit of a loss about who's watching it and thinks it's worth a 7. I think the Marvel fanboys have been out there review bombing the right way, and it's frustrating because there are moments in this show where it really shines. Like in episode 2, there's a scene between Nick Fury and Rhodey, War Machine, Don Cheadle.
Oh yeah, Don Cheadle.
And it's fucking brilliant. It's one of the best scenes Marvel has shot post Endgame.
Okay.
One of the best written scenes post Endgame. But it lives for about 5 minutes of the episode, and then it's back to the same old shit. We've seen this before. This is nothing we haven't seen before. It feels like very similar to me to Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And the bad part of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You know, the World Smashers or whatever they were called, who were, you know, doing terrorists doing terrorist shit. And the superheroes have to, you know, find them and stop them and that kind of thing. And you're like, great. Is this again? I mean, it's really dull. It's seriously dull. Look, it's trying to be like, a little bit more mature. Like, we got this, spy stuff, and it's like an espionage show, but with Marvel characters in it at the same time. I mean, I can't believe in the first 2 episodes they just haven't gone with what the super obvious option is, and that's the thing. That's what the Skrulls are. They are the thing. And if you can't write, and the people at Marvel hire these days cannot write, so rip somebody off. And if you're gonna rip somebody off, make it good. So rip off John Carpenter. Right? And it's disappointing because I've heard people talk about it, the comic book readers who talk about the Secret Invasion storyline as being one of the best comic book storylines out there that Marvel could have used. This talk they could have used. This could have been phase 5 and 6. Instead of Kang the Conqueror, they could have used the Secret Invasion arc as their next phase of their big bad, but they chose to blow it on a TV show, which just feels undercooked and lazy. So just to be first 5 minutes of the first episode, Martin Freeman turns up at a safe house in Moscow to interview somebody who's worried about a thing, that the Skrulls are amongst us and doing nefarious things. And he basically goes, "Oh, here you go. Here's all the information I have about the Skrull conspiracy and that they might be really living amongst us. And I'm really worried the Skrulls are living amongst us. And, oh, you're the only one I trust." What odds would you give me of that information that he was actually a Skrull? Like, fucking guaranteed he is. Like, you're like, but I'm not stupid. Could you make it like? Why would you just? And as I said, they waste some fantastic actors in this. As I mentioned, Samuel Jackson's Nick Fury. Your interest level in the show goes up every time Sam's on screen. Sam's great. Sam does, Nick Fury perfectly now. So Don Cheadle shows up a couple of times. That he does his best with very limited material. Olivia Colman is in the series as well. She's fantastic when she's being menacing. She does a very cheerful British menacing character quite well. I guess she must have learned that when she was playing the Queen. Hey, it's all right. I did it there.
Ben Mendelsohn back again after.
Ben Mendelsohn is wasted again. Like, interesting, he plays Talos, the friendly Skrull, with an Australian accent. And initially I was like, oh, it's kind of cool to see Ben using his Aussie accent around. He doesn't use it much in Hollywood. But if you're trying to fit in as a Skrull, which most Skrulls are, just trying to blend into the background as a normal human being, why would you choose an Australian accent? Like, anywhere outside Australia, you stand out like dog's balls. And we also have Emilia Clarke, and she is fast becoming the kiss of death for just about everything I've ever seen her in. She was terrible in Terminator. She's pretty bad in this. It's really, really disappointing. Look, I mean, I might go back for one more, but you landed this a little bit before me. I think you were over Marvel, I think, earlier than I was, but I'm done. I'm just about done with this. If you can't make
anything with the Disney name on it, it's just like, nope, not anymore.
They need to tear this down and they need to start again. I need to go back. I need to Kevin Feige, give him a paycheck. You've been fantastic. Thank you very much. Go out and hire the last person you would expect to hire to do a Marvel film. I don't know who that is. Go out and hire somebody out of left field who is incredibly, outrageously creative and get them to do one.
And let them off the chain.
And they get, here's $50 million. That's not much for a Marvel film.
No.
Make this... And do something. Don't care what it is. It has to have a PG-13 rating probably because Marvel. Though again, if they want to be radical about it, maybe an R rating would be good. Do something. Someone radically, outrageously creative. I don't know who that is because I'm not a Hollywood talent scout, but like somebody, and just stay out of their way. Give them 6 months and $50 million and come back and see what's done at the end of it. And, maybe you lose $50 million, but shit, I mean, I think they're going to start losing that kind of money anyway. But like, this is the diminishing returns are getting fast.
Yeah.
So anyway, the last thing I'll say about this is one of the real things that undermine this film is to really remind yourself of what's going on and with what a Skrull is, what they do, and what happens, why this TV show is happening. You need to revisit Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's not something I was very interested in doing, and I think it's something that not many people are interested in doing because it was fairly mediocre at best.
And that was only 4 years ago.
It's 4 years ago. So you're like, what happened in that film again? I really need to go back and see it again. Do I need to? I don't know. So it's very weak and it's a soft burn for me.
Yeah. Okay. My last thing that I would just talk about, considering it is still somewhat topical with Indiana Jones, is I have got a definite burn, which is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Is that a fan film?
Yes, it's a fan film. It was directed by K.K. Abrams. No, it wasn't.
We've actually gone through and revisited all 3 indie films this week, and probably going to see if we can see the new one.
Yeah.
And Michelle's like, we got through Last Crusade last night. She's like, so are we going to watch Crystal Skull? And I've gone, no, I haven't seen it since it came out, so maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was 15 years ago. You're saying it was?
Yep.
Not that bad.
That's yep. My silence.
That bad.
That's enough. I have suffered it too many times in my life now.
Well, I will leave us with one light of hope, and I'll keep it brief because we're pushing the hour-and-a-half mark.
Yeah.
Is season 2 of The Bear.
Okay.
So those who remember, I loved season 1. I thought it was sensational. It's about a chef from the fine dining world who runs to Chicago to run his family sandwich shop when his brother kills himself. The first season's very much about him coming to terms with working in a sandwich shop in Chicago, and the people who work there, who've worked there for years and years and years, coming to terms with Kami, played by Jeremy Allen White, Kami Burisato. Kami has worked in Michelin-star kitchens, and he brings that philosophy to his sandwich shop. And these restaurants are sandwich cooks, they're not used to calling him chef and we chef and stuff like that. So it's about that friction and how they also come together as a team at the end. I won't spoil what happens at the end of the season in case there are people out there who have not seen it. Season 2 basically revolves around them building and opening their own restaurant, changing from a sandwich shop into an actual proper fine dining restaurant. The cast characters back. We are joined in season 2 by Bill Odenkirk and Jamie Lee Curtis for at least one episode.
Okay. I was going to say, just looking through the cast, the only 2 that I know is Joe McHale and Oliver Platt.
And John McHale's in like one scene, but yeah, I think you're going to start seeing these actors pop up a little bit more because I think John Bernthald's in an episode, a few episodes as well. So it's been very highly regarded. The first episode made a bit of a splash. Though, one criticism here, this is aired in the United States. I don't know if the whole thing's aired, but a lot of it has. It on Hulu. This is made for Hulu. Yeah. Who owns Hulu? Disney. Is it airing on Disney Plus in Australia yet? No. Later in about a month to go. So fuck you, Disney. Like, you own the thing. Let me watch it, please. Yep. I would like to watch it on the streaming service I pay for, but you're not putting it on there, so I will find other ways to watch it. Sorry. Yep. Season 2 is very good. It starts slow, but it really heats up quickly. They also do the thing that you've talked about streaming shows needing to do, in the sense of, like, if they want a 1 hour episode, they can do a 1 hour episode, and they do. Most of the episodes are about half an hour, but one of the episodes we just started watching last night is actually a full hour, and you're like, brilliant. This is what you should do. It's just not network television. You can do whatever the fuck you
every part. There's no problem.
You can do whatever you want. It's streaming television. Just put it together however you want. You want an hour episode? Fine. You want a 2-hour episode? Yeah, whatever, if that's what your story needs, do it. So if you watch season 1 and you're hanging out, well, you'll get it soon on Disney Plus, I assume, or you can start watching it early like me. If you haven't watched season 1 yet, it was one of the best new shows of 2022, so I strongly encourage you to go back and have a look. I'm putting this in the binge category.
Okay. My last very, very quick one, because I've only just started watching it, is that season 3, Henry Cavill's final season of The Witcher, is now mostly online. We've got the first 5 episodes of season 3 have been released, and then the rest are coming. The last 3 are coming at the end of this month, and I am going to call this now. My interest has dropped because I know that Henry Cavill's leaving. Henry Cavill is still very good as Geralt, but everything else is like, I don't really care about any of these characters, and bringing Liam Hemsworth in to replace him, that's not going to do any good, because people who are fans of just The Witcher as a property, either the video games or the books, that changing the character halfway through, it's not, you're setting Liam up for failure. He's either got to do an impression of Henry Cavill to keep it going, and people just play on as if like, yep, this is exactly still the same character, even though it's very, very obviously not the same person. So no one, but I think that they are going to get to the end of season 5. If the viewership numbers are not high, they're going to release the last 3, and then maybe the writers' strike will serve them well, and they can go, you know what, we're canceling. We're not going ahead with season 4. Because I think what they're going to do for this season is, they knew already that Henry Cavill was going out. I think they're going to try and spend a little bit more time at other characters, trying to get us invested into them. But they're all assholes and all rather boring. I'm not interested in them, and I want to watch The Witcher, not the political person whose name I can't remember here. I think that we may possibly get the season 4 with Liam Hemsworth, but then it's going to be something like, you know what, we're going to stop that. And they'll relaunch somehow.
It could be like the heroes back at the writer's strike from 15 years ago.
Yep. It's strange. The people that we pay not enough money to write these things, that do a great job and make us want to really enjoy them, when they step away, you can't do their job. Give them what they want. Everyone wins.
Don't hold your breath.
No.
That ties a bow around it, I think.
Yes.
I missed that with Switch. Is that a binge, or is that a browse, or is that a burn?
That is. I want to say browse, but it's a burn. The show's dead. No, there's no investment in it. It's dead. It's burn the witch.
Hats off to you. We barely knew you. That's it for this week, I think, though.
That is it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about our chain movie of the week, which was Con Air. I have picked Bringing Out the Dead for our next one, the Nicolas Cage, Martin Scorsese movie from 1999. We talked about After Earth, because Travis doesn't like me, and neither does Luck of a Wheel Spin. And we talked about Renfield. We have got Terminator 3 as our wheel spun movie. Yeah, wheel spun movie. And
20 years ago this week.
Yes, 20 years ago this week. And no doubt we will probably have some words to say about this new Indiana Jones movie that they haven't revisited since Last Crusade.
Indeed. First time in 30 years.
Yep, first time in 30 years. But on that note, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget, you can like, share, and subscribe. It does help viewers, does help us with our podcast. We are going to be going back to our regular routine from now on. And please follow us at Evil Trav, at The Fried Brain, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere you will find those delightful armchair producers as glorious white noise. Until next time, good night.